Cool.
Thank you very much. All right. Just give me 1 second. I gotta step away from the computer and then I will get going. Leave because I forgot to make coffee last night, cold brew coffee, so I had an emergency Red Bull delivered. All right, please add your name to the attendees list in this document. I'll share a link in chat. There you go. And let's get going. So first we're going to do the milestone checkup. Just going to run through this agenda in order. V1.8 milestone is due on May 17th, which is a little less than 2 weeks away, which means we did just go into feature freeze for this release. So we typically at this point onwards don't merge any more major features for the release, and we do merge bugs, and we have made exceptions about features in the past if there's stuff that people really want to get in there, but we try not to, just to give time, give stuff a little bit of time to soak and let people sort of try out features before they go into mainland. So looking at the board for 1.8, the folks working on, well, I believe it's Sergen, who is an Upbounder, who is working on both of these review in progress ones, which I've been reviewing. I'll need to check in with him to see where it's at. I believe he is out today and not on the call, but these ones are likely to get in. The proposal for implementing a plugin mechanism for out-of-tree external stores is also an Upbounder. That's Hassan who's working on that. That proposal looks good to me. That'll be merged, but that is just a proposal at this point. Well, pretty confident it'll be merged, I should say, but it's just a proposal at this point, so no actual feature coming. Support patching from common data sources. Mr. MX. Whose first name I think is Max, is working on this one. I think that proposal is also coming along pretty nicely, so that might make it in. I honestly don't know, and he's not here on the call at the moment. Sadly, the one that Sergen and I are working on is custom compositions, which we've been calling composition functions now to more accurately represent the way that we think it's going to work. Unfortunately, it's not going to make it in. I was rushing to get it ready by Tuesday, and it's like 40% ready code base wise or something like that. So sorry to say this one's been delayed a few times. It didn't make it to 1.7. It's not going to make it to 1.8. The good part is that we have got a prototype. We have got a good way along to the design. So it would be surprising to me if it didn't make it into Crossplane 1.9. So that is what we've got going on at the moment. I'm pretty sure, oh, no, there's 1 or 2 things that have gone into this. So, we have a steering committee meeting after this, and one thing we're noticing lately is that the Crossplane project on core especially has slowed down a lot new features wise. We've had a couple of releases that haven't had a significant amount of stuff in them, and my hunch is that's because we have matured. There is definitely a lot of work to do, but it's sort of big, hairy work like inventing observability resources or custom composition or something like that takes a good amount of time. And we're releasing every 8 weeks at the moment, which is pretty frequently. So something I'm going to raise with the steering committee meeting later today, which I'm a member, is possibly to release a little bit less frequently, maybe go to release every 3 months or something like that. Just to basically make the releases a little bit more meaningful and hope that we've got a bit more sort of content in them that's built up over 3 months rather than having sort of more frequent releases with less in them. Any thoughts or opinions on that for the folks who are on the call? Cool. All right, so we are going to, as I won't start it right now, but food for thought, we are going to start planning out the 1.9 release. So there's obviously going to be some holdovers from that here. I think that the pluggable secret stores feature, which we recently added alpha support for secret stores, which basically changes the way that Kubernetes secrets are written a little bit for connection details, so that you can push them to another cluster if you want to, as well as running to the local one, and add support for Vault. We thought we'd sort of start there to prototype it out, but now we're actually looking at a sort of almost a CSI style extension model for Crossplane that will effectively let people build separate binaries that teach Crossplane how to write to different kind of secret stores. So that I expect is going to be 1.9. That's the design that Hassan has pretty close to done, or is done, and I feel like it's pretty much ready to be merged once he gets back. Yeah, another thing that I have that's top of mind for me that I personally might pitch for 1.9 is we have a handful of features, including secret stores, including composition revisions and controller configs that are in alpha at the moment. I would really like to spend some time getting some of them. I think revisions, composition revisions, for example, is a pretty clear one to go to beta. There are a few bugs and things that need to be worked on, but I think we should commit the time to get that to the next level of maturity. Other than that, updates on providers. I don't know that we have too many active provider maintainers here, but one exciting thing that that did happen recently was that the folks at DigitalOcean released the first version of their provider. Made a little bit of news about that. There's a blog over here on the DigitalOcean blog. I believe it's got obviously droplet support and a few other things. I think it might have had, managed Kubernetes in it. I haven't personally had a chance to try it out yet, but it's super cool. I'm excited about that. Other than that, it looks like the provider Datadog has had a release. Oh, there you go, Yuri. I see your name on it. Any commentary about that?
Yeah, so there is a very initial release of Datadog provider, which intentionally covers only minimal amount of tested resources. So it's basically monitors and SLOs and associated JSON way to describe monitor. So you can already start creating like a drive Datadog configuration with that provider, at least creating the Datadog configuration resources that is very relevant to application and associated SLOs. So that's very initial but working release.
Nice. Any other provider related updates? Any new interesting features in providers that I might not be aware of that anyone has? All right. Community topics and questions. This sounds like it might be a Victor video. Terraform, Pulumi, Helm, Customize, Ansible, none of the above.
Yeah, that's me.
Nice. It's just anything to say about this one apart from folks should go watch it. It's awesome.
Yeah, go watch it. Use Crossplane.
Let's see. We saw this tweet. I'm curious about this one. I don't know if anyone on the call knows, but Dan Garfield tweeted that the Large Hadron Collider is powered by Argo and Crossplane. I'm guessing that might mean like the computers around the Large Hadron Collider. I'm presuming the literal collider itself is not running Crossplane, but maybe they're using it on the project. I believe they do use it at CERN, right? And then what else? Some recent blogs from Shipper also about using Argo CD and Crossplane with their Shipper product. Custom compositions, as I mentioned, unfortunately not going to make 1.8 as much as I would like it to. I had a lot of fun working on it, but we need a little bit more time realistically to make sure we get something quality out there. Kubecon EU updates. Crossplane folks will be at Kubecon EU, right? Is anyone on the call going to be representing Crossplane at the conference? I will not be able to make it, unfortunately.
I hope to be at the booth, at the Crossplane booth.
Sweet. Cool. Yeah, I'm pretty sure we'll have well, Upbound is sending quite a lot of people over there to represent both Upbound the company and Crossplane the project at Kubecon. So there'll definitely be a bunch of folks who are familiar with Crossplane over there. We're also totally happy. You know, we totally want community members at the Crossplane booth. So if anyone's interested and everyone's going to Kubecon and would love to hang out at the booth, you know, please go ahead or let us know. You know, if you want to volunteer at the booth, that would be even better. Get in touch with me and I'll put you in touch with the right people to help out. Okay, and then under here, I'm seeing just this one topic. How should providers handle reconciling remote source content? Is this one that you added, Bob?
Yeah, this is me. I've been doing a lot with provider Terraform, and noticed that it's when we use a remote module source that it's pulling that remote module source and basically, you know, rerunning everything, including Terraform and init on every reconciliation.
Yeah.
And there was a request in the provider Kubernetes for remote manifest support, which I thought was a good idea.
Mhm.
But then, you know, the same question comes up, right? Is the expectation that the provider is reconciling against the status of the remote thing when it was created, or, you know, is the provider responsible for going out every minute and checking to see if the thing is changed and reconciling against that, which seems a little bit overkill. You know, you're gonna do that 1,400 times a day. You know, it seems like if you're referring to something remote, especially if it's a Git reference, that maybe you want to, you know, you can assume that the remote thing isn't changing unless the Git reference changes. And so as long as the Git reference in the manifest doesn't change, you really don't need to go get it again. So, you know, I just was looking for what, you know, folks' expectation was.
There's a couple of things in there. One, supporting the, just shooting from the hip, I haven't heard of it before, but shooting the remote manifest, supporting remote manifests in provider Kubernetes sounds like a good idea to me as well. That sounds very similar to the provider Terraform pattern, as you mentioned. Then the other part of it seemed to be about, you know, we pull from the remote source of truth very often, and we apply that very often. The applying it very often is, pardon me, pretty typical for Crossplane. You know, for a provider AWS managed resource, for example, the source of truth there is really your claim in the Kubernetes API.
Right.
And we have the poll interval, which defaults to 60 seconds, and we effectively check that every 60 seconds. There was a very, very old bug or issue that Jared, I think, had actually written that effectively said it would be really nice if we could subscribe to things, because we want to, you know, we want to correct drift effectively. Like if we're taking your remote Kubernetes manifest and using it to create a deployment or something, and someone changes that deployment, we want to fix that. We want to reset it as soon as possible to force Crossplane to be the state of truth. Now, Kubernetes, when you're doing something to Kubernetes, we have the advantage that they have watches and all that kind of stuff. So we don't need to actually poll it. We could just watch it and see if it changes. But if it's something in AWS, it becomes a lot harder to sort of subscribe to an RDS instance and sort of say, hey, tell us if this changes so that we can fix it. I'm sure it's principle for some cloud resources using some cloud technologies, but that's kind of tough. So longer story short, I believe that there was a patch set that I was working on a while ago that went into some providers at core Crossplane that made the poll interval tunable, the interval at which we sort of poll stuff to see if it's drifted. I actually forget whether that's in all providers at this point, or even if it got into provider template that we use to build these providers, but it is desirable to roll that out, and that would allow us to basically have a flag on Crossplane. So if you sort of were pretty comfortable saying check for drift once an hour or once a day or something like that, that would be configurable. I think the other part of it is just, you know, hitting it so often means you're pulling from, in cases like provide a Terraform, provide a Kubernetes, where almost like the source of truth is potentially external to Crossplane. It's hitting a Git repo or something to pull in that manifest. As you say, there's kind of we're hitting that thing a lot to get that source of truth. The immediate thing that comes to mind there is that we usually do cache that stuff, I believe. Actually, I forget, Urinos provide a Terraform a lot better than me, but we could cache that stuff at least. So I could imagine adding a sort of an almost pod pull template or container pull policy style option to these things that sort of say, you know, pull the Terraform manifest down remotely if it's not present, or pull it down always, or pull it down never, or something, or even cache it for an hour or something like that. And if it's changed after an hour, then, or don't pull it down again or something like that to hit it less frequently.
Yeah, I mean, in the Terraform case, the you know, it's sitting in memory under /tf, right? And you know, it does get refreshed every minute. You know, and I guess that was actually part of the question, right? Is the source of truth the remote? I mean, it is, right? But is it supposed to be the remote repo, or is the source of truth supposed to be the claim as it was instantiated the first time, right? Barring any edits to the claim, of course.
Yeah, well, this is an interesting one, because if I think about, like, if what I'm imagining is you've got a claim which creates, you know, is a proxy for a composite resource. So let's sort of hazily say they're the same thing. You've got a claim, and then the claim uses a composition to create a managed resource, which is a Terraform, what are they called? Just a Terraform configuration.
Workspace, yeah.
Called workspace, yeah.
Yeah.
So at that point, I would say that the sources of truth are a combination, really, of the remote Terraform manifest, presuming you didn't use the inline option and put that in your composition. So the remote Terraform manifest and the claim, because it's probably fields on the claim that are being used as, you know, inputs to that Terraform, right, something like that. So they're kind of both, they all become the source of truth and get merged together to make the thing. So in a way, the remote Terraform is certainly in that somewhat of an edge case for Crossplane, because we don't typically pull out to an external system to get a source of truth like that.
Right.
But yeah, that is kind of the source of truth, I think.
Yeah, I mean, that's why the remote Kubernetes manifest kind of raised the same issue with me, right? It's like, well, you know, great, I'm going to go get this remote Kubernetes manifest and instantiate it right now, but then I'm going to check it every minute to see if that remote thing changed, so that I can change what I instantiated. It almost makes sense to add an option, you know, make it configurable, right? Is my so here's my remote URL. You know, do I have an option? Do I get that once and never check it again? Do I check it at some given configurable poll interval, right? So maybe I check it every hour, or I check it every day or something. I can see lots of different use cases where in some cases you never expect it to change, and you always expect it's going to be the same thing. So you're wasting your time retrieving it once a minute. You know, in other cases, maybe you do expect it to change, but it's only going to change once a day or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. And the other interesting side effect of that is that polling it frequently allows us to frequently recover from losing that state that's in memory, or, you know, potentially in a persistent volume or something like that when we're the /tf directory. So it allows us to be more stateless if we were going to say we only want to pull this relatively infrequently, but we want to apply it much more frequently. So we want to sort of get that state once, but use that state to reconcile stuff many times a day. Then that has the implication that we potentially would need to be more persistent about how we store that state, unless we framed it as like sort of only pull it once a day unless you lose it, in which case.
Well, yeah, that's what I was thinking. Yeah, I mean, it's in the connect function today, so it would, you know, it'd be easy to say, does it exist? If not, go get it. If it does exist, you know, is it older than I want it to be? And if it is, go get it.
Yeah. I think I you know, modulo figuring out what the API looks like to configure that and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
I feel like that's fairly reasonable to tune how frequently you hit the sort of source of truth there. it feels very close to the I forget what it's called, but like the pull policy or whatever on containers.
Yeah, exactly.
You might want something a little more like, you know, like you were sort of saying, pull it once a day or something, even if you already have it, but no more often than that.
Right.
Yeah, but I'm not sure if you've sort of raised an issue tracking this or anything like that, but I would say it'd be very valid to do so, and seems like a feature that I would probably not work on myself, but
Well, I mean, and I'm happy to you know, contribute what I can to it as well. I did raise an issue on the fact that, I mean, basically what I'm looking at right now is the performance and scalability of provider Terraform, because we're using it a lot. Excuse me, we're using it a lot. And we're finding that it slows down with more and more workspaces. And I think part of that is because I'm assuming it's single threaded. I'm not a Go person in any useful context. So I'm assuming it's single threaded, and that it just had, you know, every interval it has to run Terraform init and Terraform plan and, you know, do all those things. And so I'm just kind of looking for anything that we can take out of that process to speed it up.
Yeah, I can send you some information. Off the top of my head, I believe that it kind of is single threaded. I mean, it's in practice, there's a bunch of Go routines in there that get spun up, but number of concurrent reconciles defaults to 1.
Okay.
In controller runtime. The patch set that so I actually did a bunch of performance tuning for core Crossplane and providers maybe a year ago now almost. But the tricky thing about it was I came up with a patent to make them more performant. I applied it to core Crossplane and 1 or 2 providers, but it wasn't feasible for me to go to every provider
Sure.
and do that. So I have an example of sort of, I think there was a PR to provide a GCP that might be like fairly straightforward to sort of copy over to provide a Terraform. And among other things, that makes the parallelism of reconciles tunable. It does do it in a slightly interesting way in that you tell the provider you can tell it your poll interval, which you can do here, I believe. Actually, I might be I might be mistaken. This might already be in here.
Actually, specifically to provider Terraform, the first things that we can try to do is to cache Terraform init, like this .terraform directory per workspace, right? It's currently like resides with a go-getter generated git checkout, and then it's on every reconciliation, it's getting wiped, right, by how like go-getter works. And then it's again runs Terraform init, which is comparably very expensive operation. So yeah, if we move Terraform init out of this like a working directory, that will speed up things dramatically. Just like a standard git pull, like compared again, if compared with the Terraform init, it's very fast operation, right? I mean git pull of a remote model.
Yeah. Well, I'll get back to you on. So I agree that there's definitely plenty of stuff that can be done that is specific to this provider, and there is also probably that generic patch set, which I cannot immediately diff this file in my head to remember whether that's been applied or not. I don't think it has though, because it added a flag that was effectively along the lines of like, how many reconciles per second do you want this thing to be capped at, and then it will basically do at most that many reconciles, derive a bunch of other properties such as how parallel it is and all that kind of thing from that knob. So I will, Bob, what's your username on Crossplane Slack?
It's Bob Hamilton.
Bob, all right, that's easy. I will find that and send you an example of that.
Oh, that'd be great.
Cool.
And Nick, is it part of provider template? Or not?
I don't think it is. Yeah, sadly, it really should be. That's, yeah. Let me double check. Oh, no, it is. Yeah, if you see this max reconcile rate, that is a good telltale that sort of pattern has been applied. So new providers, it might not be part of TerraJet so far. I kind of remember vaguely saying, "Hey, this should go into TerraJet," and then not being familiar enough with that code base to do it myself. Yeah, so it is there in the template. All right, well, that is everything we have on the agenda for the day. Does anyone have any other thoughts or topics, or shall we wrap up the meeting earlier?
Yeah, just to thank Bob to all the contribution to provider Terraform. Thank you so much. All the PRs are amazing, and it really increased the provider quality dramatically. All your recent contributions.
And it's my pleasure.
Yeah, thanks to both of you. That was one that I started, and then was like, I need someone else to to make this great. And then Yuri's done an awesome job, and it's good to see you joining him, Bob.
Well, I've learned more Go in the past month than I ever knew. So,
what's your typical language that you work in?
Python is my daily language. So.
Oh, nice. Yeah, that was mine too until I got sucked into the world, and that became my primary language.
I have a question really quick.
Yeah, sure. Hey, Manabu.
Hey, how's it going? So I have a customer who is trying to use Argo CD with Crossplane. It's pretty well documented, so it works for the most part. The problem is that when they are using Argo CD CLI to create a cluster with Crossplane installed, they're getting like timeout errors. I don't have like details, like all the details yet. We'll have like a meeting tomorrow to go over it, but just kind of wanted to see if you guys had like any issues like that. It's only happens when they're using the Argo CD, the binary, the CLI.
The
timeout
one? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, is it possible that they're using Helm in a composition with Argo CD in that scenario? So the Argo CD isn't invoking anything Helm related. I'm asking because we actually have like a similar customer request, and we identified that kubectl like as a recent version Sapphire according to recent throttling patches, and Helm is still like it has the same class of problems, but nothing relevant is patched in its code base. So it's producing the same throttling, like very similar throttling warning messages as kubectl in older versions.
Manabu,
yeah.
Just to confirm what your description of the error is, they are successfully able to kubectl to the Kube API, and they're able to interact with the cluster in all other ways, but talking specifically to the Argo daemon on the cluster is not working?
If they use the Argo CD, the CLI, right? Argo CD has their own CLI.
Right.
If they use that, and then it'll essentially they are getting timeouts. I really want to share all that information with you, but I can't.
Yeah, no, it just sounds like if that particular case sounds like a configuration for however they've set up ingress for Argo CD, not necessarily related to Crossplane.
Okay.
Because it would be configured by the Helm chart. However their Helm chart is asking to create a load balancer for Argo CD would be the blocker there somehow.
The reason they're pointing out to Crossplane is that it works just fine if they don't have Crossplane in that environment. So again, I don't have like all that information, so I just kind of wanted to see if you guys had like, just from describing the issue, if you had like any something that came into your mind. But if not, then I'll definitely go get some more information, because I honestly don't have that much more information either. So
yeah,
once you've got more information, sorry, Aaron, you can definitely down to do more troubleshooting, but I did want to point out that we've got this issue on Crossplane 2773, which is almost our aggregation issue for there's a handful of known issues with Crossplane and Argo CD working together. So we've been using this to capture them. Also, if this does turn out to be one of these, or I don't think it will, or a new one, please do comment here, Manabu. I just noticed I had pinged Jesse, who's one of the Argo CD project leaders, to talk about where we work on these, and he has actually replied a week ago, and I just noticed now. So That's good. Good progress.
Yeah, actually, I saw that yesterday. And looks like they're trying to solve that, the claim and the composite resource relationship, right? That hopefully that gets resolved, because right now you essentially have to like ignore that composite resource relationship.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I'm pretty sure that one is one that we can just fix on Crossplane's end, and we just should fix it at some point. I think that one might be already labeled as a. It's arguably a good first issue. Put that on there. So if anyone wants to work on that one, I think it's a pretty easy fix. The only tricky thing is that we already do a bunch of label propagation. So coming up with a way to not propagate those labels that is not breaking change and that is also elegant and doesn't just look like having a sort of a deny list of labels is maybe a bit tricky, but code-wise should be pretty easy to do.
If I have time, I might take on that like next week or something.
Nice. Thank you. Cool. All right, Aaron, did you had another thought about this or?
No, it's just going to be more. I would have to know a lot more about the configuration to understand why Crossplane may or may not be interacting the same way as like why the Helm release via Crossplane is somehow different than the Helm release from Helm install from the CLI.
Yeah, it's like I said, I don't. I'll get on the meeting tomorrow with the customer, and I'll get more information, and I'll reach out.
And I would just to clarify, is it related to our yesterday conversation in Slack regarding the amount of CRDs, right? So it's like actually performance related, like API.
Yeah. So yeah, they were using the old version of Kubecon, so that is one of the issues we talked about yesterday, right? And I had them upgrade to the newer version, and it's fine, working fine. But they want to use Argo CD as binary, and for some reason they're having issues. So yeah.
So do you know how does it look like in terms of like it's any Argo CD CLI invocation or it's Argo CD sync on some Argo application and something happens with again Helm installation underline, for example?
So this particular example that they gave us is the Argo CD cluster add command. To be honest with you, I'm not too familiar with Argo CD CLI. When I do like Argo CD stuff, I just use like declarative setup. So I probably have to like dig into that a little bit more. But yeah, so it's happening with the Argo CD class.add command.
Got it. So it's possible like a Argo CD command itself has the same kind of API throttling issue as kube control used to have.
Yeah, I think that's what I guessed, but again, I don't think we have enough information to determine that. So.
All right, folks. Well, unless anyone else has anything on their mind, let's get 24 minutes back or something like that and end the meeting early. Thanks for coming, everyone. Cool. I'm sure Jared will be back to run this much better than I do next week.
Great job, Nick. Thanks a lot. Cheers.
Yeah.